Who is your daddy? I am your father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?
There we go. We are live with episode 162. Just like that. Hey, sorry we missed last week. I didn't have a ton to talk about. Actually, it's funny. I'm starting to turn into Derek in some ways. I just haven't had a ton of time for gaming the past couple weeks. So I'm not sure that I've got a lot of interesting stuff to say necessarily. So now I know how Derek felt for, I don't know, 2018.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, my name's Tim. I'm here with Derek, and we are mostly here to talk about games and stuff. But I've actually got a couple non-gaming recommendations to give to you before we dive into video gaming stuff. I just watched the new Nate Bargatze special, The Tennessee Kid on Netflix. Hilarious. I love his dry sense of humor. I think he's fantastic. So I highly recommend. Actually, I recommend going to watch his half-hour special on Netflix first, which is under that stand-ups show, and then his full-hour special that just came out a couple weeks ago. Super funny. Dude's hilarious, and he's 100% clean. For those of you who want to listen to comedians, family and friends and kiddos about, he's completely rated G. So very funny dude. Highly recommend him.
Right.
Otherwise, I don't really have a lot of other things I've been doing or playing that's new. So I'm just going to throw it to you, Derek. What have you got that's going on, gaming or otherwise?
Last time we talked, we were probably 7 to 10 hours into Sekiro.
Yeah.
I played a lot more of that. I haven't played though in a week, so I played a lot more in the week prior to us skipping recording the show.
Yeah. And by the way, I've heard people on other shows call it Sekiro or Sekiro, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's Sekiro, right? I don't know.
It could be Sekiro. I will say this: I am all the way to what the game considers the third main boss, Genichiro. I think you fight him in the beginning, and you're supposed to lose to him. Right. I only fought him once, though. Like I knew where he was. I went up there. I watched the cutscene. I fought him, and I did okay. He has I guess three life bars or whatever. So I got him all the way down to almost the first one was gone, and I felt like I was fighting him pretty good, even though I didn't really know what I was doing. So I should have been like, oh, well, that gives me hope because I heard he's hard. I should dive in and try to beat this guy. And this was last Monday. I just was not in the mood. I was like, I can't right now with this game. Like, I'm pretty far into it. Like, I'm not far into it as far as I'm not about ready to beat it. But compared to a lot of people in our group, I've beat like 13 or 14 mini bosses. I'm on the third main boss. I've leveled up my art skills not art skills, but just my skills in general. I've leveled them up pretty decently. And then the other thing I've done is because I've killed so many mini bosses, I think I have 4 prayer beads. Not 4 prayer beads, but 4 prayer necklaces.
Oh, okay. So you've upgraded your health and vitality a few times, right?
Yeah, I'm 3 or 4 times, and then I've got an attack power of 3. I think you start out as 1.
Nice.
So every time you beat a main boss, you can level up your attack power.
Now, does that do anything for you in moment to moment? Does it help you with bosses in some special way?
So here's I think this is actually an interesting. There's a couple of things we can talk about tonight, not just video games. I'm going to talk about other games, but specifically with Sekiro, there's been a lot of discussion about easy mode and stuff like that. So I do want to hit on that. But what I want to talk about with this game is this is why I think people are struggling with this game compared to a Bloodborne or Dark Souls. So I want to talk about that real quick. And this goes for me. So I'm experiencing it. And I think this is, if we have listeners who have played played Bloodborne and Dark Souls before, maybe they'll go, yeah, I can kind of see what Derek's talking about. See, the thing a lot of people don't realize with Bloodborne and Dark Souls, it's a lot more simplistic than they realize. Now, granted, keep in mind, I'm saying that after I've figured it out, right? But when you don't know anything about those games and you go into them, they're not simplistic. So I'm not being an idiot. But what I mean, this one time I'm not being an idiot. But what I mean by that, what I mean by them, they're really simplistic, is they're really designed just like your normal RPG. Like if you play JRPGs and you're like, okay, there's this big boss coming up, what do?
Right.
You grind, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you grind to then fight the boss. Now, each boss in a JRPG generally has some like little thing that you have to know about them in order to beat them. You can't just be all powerful.
Yeah.
There's something you have to do to beat them. It's the same thing with Dark Souls and Bloodborne. But what the grinding does is it helps make fighting those guys easier. So if you go into Bloodborne or Dark Souls game and you're just like, hey, I'm just going to run through the enemies that they require me to run through. I'm going to level up a little bit, and then I'm going to fight the bosses as I run into them. You can do that if you're really highly skilled and really good at the game. If you're not, then your smartest tactic you can do is you find areas in the game that you get really good at killing the enemies, and you use those areas to then level up your character.
Just farm. Yeah,
yes, and you keep farming it. And that's what I did in Bloodborne. That's what I did in Dark Souls 3. I would find areas where I'm like, I knew all the attack patterns. I knew all the enemies, where they were, where they're coming from.
Even figure out some doorways you could cheese some enemies through or somewhere. Yeah. All that kind of stuff.
And I would just keep doing it. I would loop and loop. And I know for some people, like I'm sure like Jesse White, I know him good enough, he would probably roll his eyes and be like, oh my gosh, it's so dumb. I would never do that. Fine, don't do that. Don't play the games. But that's kind of how they're designed. They want you to do that
I'm
so
gonna add
you
in
get
here,
more
though,
powerful.
I do think, I can't speak to Dark Souls 3, but I can say for Bloodborne, I felt like, yes, I needed to go back and kind of power up a bit for certain bosses I encountered. But for the most part, there were enough side trails and kind of these bonus areas that I hadn't really explored yet, that I kind of went back and explored these paths that I had left behind. And so I felt like I was exploring while grinding those extra enemies. Just for anyone who's listening, I never felt like Bloodborne was just a rinse and repeat that much. It's certainly there, but I think the areas are big enough, and there's enough just kind of secret paths and other optional ways you can go. I think they allow the grinding and the kind of that repetitiveness to not feel as bad. But I know I'm just comparing that to like in a Final Fantasy 6 or 5 or way back in the day, you would literally just walk in a circle until you encountered enemies just to get the experience you need to level up. You weren't exploring anywhere new. You were just walking in a circle. And then you go in, heal at the end, come back out, walk in a circle. And that was true grinding, where it was the same thing over and over again. This, to me, they do a better job in these. But I see what you're saying. You can grind to make yourself more powerful if you want to. And if I'm understanding where you're going, Sekiro doesn't really have that opportunity for you.
So yeah, that's what I was going to get into. You can do that. Like you can, and I do it. I still go through areas to level up, but it's different.
Yeah.
What Sekiro is forcing you to do is they're forcing you to defeat bosses in order to level up. Like you have to defeat mini bosses to get health and posture and vitality upgrades. And I mean, you can get some just exploring the world, but you still, in some of those, like for instance, we talked about last time we did the show, we talked about the drunk retard. If you beat him, you get a prayer bead. If you go behind where he's at, like a building that's blocked off until you beat him, you have to beat him, then you can go and find like the secret door that leads to a chest, and then that chest is another prayer bead. So you got a prayer bead from exploring the world, but you still had to beat that mini boss, because if you never beat that mini boss, you can't explore that area.
You can't get in. The door's not even open if you wanted it to.
So the point I'm trying to get to is, and the other thing in Dark Souls and Bloodborne that I didn't really get to is, not only can you do those patterns to get you're leveling up your character, you're leveling your strength, whatever your play style is in those games, you can also seek out throughout the world other weapons. Now in Sekiro, you can get
true.
prosthetics. You can get prosthetics, and also in like Bloodborne, for instance, and Dark Souls, you can get other weapons and then level the weapons up. Okay, and you can level the weapons up without beating bosses. In Sekiro, you cannot level up. You cannot get another weapon. You can get a prosthetic arm. You can get these little tricky prosthetic arms, but you cannot get another weapon, and you cannot level up your weapon without, and I'm talking, when I say level up your weapon, I'm talking about attack power, without beating a main boss.
Yep.
So they've locked everything behind these bosses. They're saying, hey, if you want to move on in this game, you cannot run past things like you used to in Bloodborne and Dark Souls. You have to fight your way through. And that is the only way you can level up. And so even though you can run these little circles fighting little easy enemies and you can level up your skills, those skills don't equal a more powerful you. They're just little things you can do in a fight to make the fight a little bit easier. They're little tricks, but you still have to be good at fighting. Does that make sense? So like they have that, what is it, Mercury counter or something like that. That is where if the opponent is thrusting at you and you hit dodge, you will then automatically slam their thrust attack to the ground, and you can jump on them or something like that, and you mess with their posture.
Yep.
Okay, so
that does a lot of posture damage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is very beneficial. But notice you had to do something. Like you didn't just upgrade your character; you just upgraded his abilities that you still have to do in the fight. You still have to have timing.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have timing on that dodge, you're not going to do those
counters. You
counters.
have to recognize what kind of attack it is.
Exactly.
I mean,
you have to be able to
most of the lower level ones, they telegraph it. It's really easy to practice on the lower level guys. But when you get to a mid-level boss, it can be hard to see that one of those, especially if they're using like a spear, that a thrust is coming. So it can be tough. It can be tough to identify that. So that's a good call, though. Like even though you unlock a skill, you have to be good at it for it to work.
Exactly. So So that's one thing. Then the other major thing is you have no online help. So I know people would get stuck in Dark Souls and Bloodborne and be like, I can't beat this boss. I've tried 5 times and I just don't have the patience. I'm going to summon somebody. Boom. Voila. Summon somebody. Generally, when you summon somebody, unless you get a complete tartar, you can beat the boss with ease because most of the bosses are designed to fight one-on-one.
Right.
And if you have another guy running around or another 2 guys running around, they're taking away or distracting the boss, and then you can go in and hit them, or vice versa. You distract them and they go in and hit them. So it makes it way easier.
It gives you an out.
Yes.
You don't have to get totally stuck in those games.
Exactly. So in this game, I feel like even though I've put in 20 plus hours, I've beaten a lot of mini bosses. Like I feel like I've done a lot, and I've looked at these guides and I'm like, I've done nothing. Like there is like another 9 or 10 main bosses I have to fight, and there's probably another 10 to 15 mini bosses. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like this game has stressed me out. There's been times where I've been playing and I've just gotten stuck on a mini boss for hours, and I'm like, I can't summon somebody. I can maybe unlock another skill, but that's going to take forever. By the way, there are areas where you can do your little circle of grinding. The grinding feels like it takes way longer in this game than it does in other games. So it's clearly saying that's not how you beat this game. You want to beat this game, you really do have to get good. And I think that's why you're seeing this outcry for an easy mode.
Easier mode, right.
And so I'm going to transition to that because I have opinions on that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's what everybody's going to think it is. I am a big
here's my prediction before you get into it.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that Derek from 3 or 4 years ago may have said, no easy mode for anybody. Too bad. This not every game is for everybody. I could be wrong. This is totally a guess. You tell me if I'm right. But I feel like the Derek of now, who has gained an appreciation for a broader selection of hobbies outside of gaming, I think you're a little more empathetic to the folks who would say, I want to experience this, but I don't want to have to be amazing at it. Maybe don't give me all the trophies and accolades, but let me experience it. I feel like you're going to be on the side of, give them an easy mode. But tell me if I'm right. Where are you with this?
All right, so you're a little off. I
Okay.
still think you need to get good. Okay, but I don't believe there should be an easy mode, and I'm going to explain why.
Okay.
But I will say this: I do think this game, for my level, I think I'm doing pretty good in the group. I haven't seen anybody really passing me in our group. Granted, our group is smaller.
Yeah, well, yes, we're a smaller group, but out of the 300 or so members, I think we've got a lot of Souls fans that are playing this game. And I feel like I'm seeing more progress from your updates. There might be someone who's quietly just dominating it, but
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I think Tyler Lee is where I am. I think he was about ready to fight Genichiro or something like that.
Okay.
But other than that, I hadn't heard anybody say, "Yeah, I just beat Genichiro and I'm blah blah blah." But here's what I was gonna say. I don't think this game needs easy mode. I do think they may have made this a little too hard. And yes, there are people that are amazing at video games, or they just have a lot more time than me, or they just have a desire to be really good at these things. And I have obviously a desire to be good at this game. Like, I'd love to beat it. So it is beatable. And I do even think I could beat it, even though I won't go on any posts and say, I'm definitely going to beat this game. Because honestly, I'm getting fatigued. Like, I logged on yesterday and I was like, you know what? I just want to play Borderlands. Like, I don't want Borderlands doesn't make me angry. Sekiro makes me angry.
Borderlands should make all people happy. That's what Borderlands does.
There was and I'll talk about Borderlands tonight, but there was one moment where I was like, okay, Borderlands is now pissing me off. but Borderlands, I can fix it. Like, I know what to do if I'm losing, you're under level. Go fix your level and
go level up. Exactly.
Yeah. This game, it's not that way. I mean, there's a part of it that feels like Zelda, where it's like, hey, once you get it, like, you get what the boss's weakness is, you can sometimes just cheese them and beat them. Like, there were some bosses I was struggling with, and so I went and watched, Fighting Cowboy or something like that, and I was like, okay, can you just tell me what I'm missing here? Because I've tried to understand this guy. Like, the guy I really struggle with, 7 Spears. He's a mini boss. He's at the beginning of the game. This isn't a spoiler. At the very beginning of the game, you go get this child out of like this building, and 7 Spears ends up. He's like standing on the stairs of that building. You're gonna revisit that area, and he's there waiting to fight you. He's optional, completely optional. You don't have to fight him. You can progress through the game without seeing him at all if you want to. But again, I want to fight him, not just so I can be like, oh, I beat him, because he has a prayer bead. I need his prayer bead. So I start fighting him, and the dude just whips me to shreds, like one-shots me. I'm like, okay. So I go watch a video about him, and I'm like, here's how you cheese him. So I'm trying to cheese him, and I'm dying over and over on cheesing him. Well, finally, I watched a video from somebody who actually knows how to play the game, and I believe, and I'm just guessing here because it's been a couple weeks since I fought him and beat him, I think it is the windmill attack, which I use all the time. They're like, you can literally just keep spamming that. He'll get through every once in a while and hit you, but you just jump back in on him and you spam that attack. And if you spam that attack, you decimate his posture, and then before you even get him like a quarter down on his health, his posture breaks and you just one-shot him. Yeah. You just death blow him. And I was like, are you serious?
Wait. You do what?
I death blow him.
Gross.
Emily's sitting next to me. I don't want to be too gross. But so yeah.
But you're right. Those kind of things happen where it's like, I'm trying what I feel like is the right way, what I've been told is the right way, and I can't do it. Let me give a quick example. Last week, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, you told me, hey, here's how you beat the fat dude, the fat drunk dude. Here's how you beat him. So I went in there. I probably tried 4 times in a row the Derek method, where I kind of ran by everybody, went up, started the battle, and I got to the point where it's just me against him, and I was up close, and I was just dodging, hitting, dodging, and almost all of his attacks were still hitting me. I was getting so ticked off. I could not figure that right pattern or spacing to not get hit. He kept killing me. So eventually I was like, all right, I'm going to try a different method. So this time I went through that level and I killed everyone from the very beginning of the level. Then I went through the house to the left without triggering the NPC helper or the enemies. Took out the 2 guys that are there. And then I just started either throwing shurikens from a distance to lure his mobs one at a time. Or I would go ahead and just jump in there, death blow somebody, kill him real quickly, and then kill one more guy if I could, and then run away. And since I've cleared the early part of the stage, I was open to run freely all the way back. So they disengage, they go back, they reset. And I kept taking out his mobs one or two at a time like that till it was just him standing in the middle. And when it's finally just him, I still haven't engaged my helper piece NPC yet. I purposefully kept them all away from him because if they all come too close to him, he will engage. So then I went around through the house again, came out one shot, did like the one shot on the big fat dude. So he's down to just one more hit left. As he's recovering from that hit, he's flailing around. I ran over, engaged the NPC, and I did exactly what you described with Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 when you have an online friend helping you. Mm-hmm. I let that NPC guy really take the brunt of this guy's anger and focus, and I just started hacking away at his back and doing all my special moves and hitting him as hard as I could, and I beat him really easily doing it that way. Took a lot more time, a lot more patience. I feel like I'm not as good as I should be because I couldn't figure out the get up close and dodge, but then I was like, but I still figured out a way to defeat him.
Found a tactic.
And the NPC guy survived. At the end, I talked to him, and he was like, that was a lot for an old man. I need to rest for a little while. I was like, I don't know if this guy usually survives this battle. So anyway, all that to say, you are absolutely right. Certain ways that you find to win, or someone else might say, here's a way to cheese him. It might not actually work for you because maybe you just don't have that same ability. Like, I don't think I have that same ability to get in close and effectively dodge without getting hit very well. I just must not be very good at that. So all that to say, that's one thing I appreciate about Sekiro. But I will admit that shortly after we talked, I got a little bit further. I defeated that guy. I got pretty close to defeating the bull on my second try, but I haven't tried since then. I fought Madame Butterfly 3 times and died every time. And I haven't really played much since then. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with when I fired up the game to the menu twice since then. And I look at it and I'm like, man, this game is really pretty. It's fun to play. It's some, great combat. I just don't know if I've got the energy or the motivation to really do this, to really get into this. And so it's been a combination of there's other shows and stuff I want to watch, but also really the only thing I want to do is that looter shooter loop of Division 2. That's usually much easier. I still die in that game, but there's something about
it's not as frustrating.
It's not nearly as frustrating, and it's just I've been able to play it without I feel like when you play a game like Sekiro and Bloodborne, there's that little edge of fear as you're playing, which makes them again really, really good. But when you're playing something like Division, there's really no punishment for dying, even if you do die. Yeah. And anyway, so all that to say, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of different ways to approach these enemies. I think it's an excellent game. I am not convinced that I will beat it. But I don't know. It sounds like I'm still so early in the game. I would
really are. I mean, you've only beat one main boss, and you didn't want it spoiled for you, but you're not even close.
I know.
It's not like I beat one. There's only 4 or 5 more.
No. I'm just scratching the surface. But that's the thing. I mean, the surface. I know you were saying earlier that it can be exhausting, and I just don't know that I always have the energy for another session of Sekiro.
That's my main thing. Like, if I stopped exercising and I started just going back to like being lazy and just go to work, come home, play video games, and that's all I did, probably. But mentally, I don't know if I can handle it. That being said, I will say this: the only boss that I've struggled with was 7 spears. Even Madame Butterfly, I beat her after 4 or 5 tries. I beat the bull on the second try, so I ran in there that one time, and then I beat him the second time. I beat the horse dude like the second or third time. Mm-hmm. I haven't struggled with any, and even Genichiro, I've only fought him once. And I've watched a video on him, and I'm like, okay, I think I could beat him. I am, though. This is where what you were kind of saying is what's true with me, and that is there's a lot of anxiety with this game. And so I'm not trying to be dramatic, meaning like I don't go into every battle going, I'm going to beat him without getting frustrated. Like, I go into every battle going, I have no idea if I'm going to beat this guy, and it's going to piss me off.
Yeah. And
so if I'm exhausted, I'm like, nope, I don't want to do this. And so even last night when I logged in, I was like, you could, where Genichiro is, you could just go up there. I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to. I'm too tired, and I don't want to be mad.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. I'm not really struggling. Like I said, I only struggle with the 7 spears dude, and once I learn how to cheese him, I beat him right away. And there's been several mini bosses. No lie, I'm not even bragging. I beat him on the first try. And there was even one that I didn't think I was going to be able to beat. I ran into him. It's the ninja. It's where you literally start the game. Like you're in that like cave area with the water and stuff like that. And you drop down. You can drop down and knife this ninja dude, the shadow ninja guy. And he's a mini boss. And here's what's hard about the boss or about the fight. And this is why I didn't think I was going to beat him because I was getting mad. It's in that little cave. So you're in a narrow area.
Like a hallway, basically.
Yes. And your camera freaks out because he's quick. He's not just like this slow boss. He's like attacking you with kicks. He's running around everywhere, jumping everywhere. And I kept like my game stopped locking on him at times. So the camera would go all over the place. I'm like, I'm yelling. I'm like, I don't know where he is. I don't know where he is. And I'm freaking out because he's going to hit me. But I actually ended up beating him after maybe 3 or 4 tries.
Yeah.
Because again, and this goes back to what I was saying about Zelda, there's a strategy, there's a pattern to all bosses. All of them. I'm not saying they all follow this exact pattern. Like Genichiro is not going to do the exact same thing every time. But he is, to a certain extent, predictable. There are certain things he will do, and that's how all the bosses are. All the mini bosses, all the main bosses. And if you can find their one weakness with your strength, or you have to create a strength in it, that's how you prevail. Do I think I will beat this game? At some point, yes. But I'm 20 plus hours in, and I'm only on the 3rd main boss. That's why I feel exhausted.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, dude, I've spent so much time in this game, and I'm only in the boss that everybody says, this is your first real challenge. So they don't even consider Madame Butterfly. They're like, she's hard. But this is the test if you're actually
Dude,
good
that
at
is,
Sekiro.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that is pretty discouraging because I feel like Madame Butterfly. I know that you said there's a way to take out her first phase easily. Again, I've only tried it 2 or 3 times.
You can cheese her first phase. You cannot cheese her second phase, and the second phase
is tough.
For me, it was the time I beat her. I did get in a rhythm where I got to cheese her for a little bit, but she breaks away. And there was times where I was scared I was going to die because I couldn't see her. And then she was like letting out her little ghost figures, and I didn't have any more seeds. I had already used them. And I'm just running in circles. There is a strategy, even if you don't have seeds. You run in circles on the outside of it, and they can't get you because they're really slow. And then eventually they turn into her butterflies. Well, when they turn into the butterflies, as the butterflies are getting close to you, you just dodge. And while you're running, she doesn't really attack you. She just stays up high. So there is strategies even in the second phase to make it a little bit easier, but it was still very nerve-wracking. Yeah. And I felt like for me personally, well, yes, I do have skills, and I do diminish my skills sometimes with the way I talk about my abilities in this game. I do think there was a little bit of luck when I beat her. Like, hey, I got a little lucky here. I should have been hit because I lost her. Or she should have, if she would have attacked me here, I wouldn't have known. But at the same time, I still beat her. But yeah, I like the game. That being said, all this stuff that I'm saying, coming back to easy mode. Yeah. I don't think there should be an easy mode because, and I agree with Sasan, and I'm not just quoting Sasan. It's funny because he said it, and I was already saying it in other groups and thinking it. The people that are complaining about easy mode are forgetting one thing. First of all, most of them that are complaining have never played Bloodborne and Dark Souls beyond like, hey, I died a few times. This game's really hard. I quit. Right? They don't have patience. They don't want to learn the systems. They don't want to take the time.
Even if they made it to the cleric base, which they probably didn't, that's it. They're done at that point.
Yeah. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I need to be politically correct, not just because I'm on the show, but even in other groups where everybody wants to be nicey nice and be like, oh, it's your feelings. Like you're just not a patient gamer. No, it's your fault. You can't sit here and tell other gamers how they should play this game when you're not willing to put in the work. And then the stupid excuse of there's never been an easy mode that has taken away from a game. Yeah, it's called Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. If you put an easy mode in it, it takes away from the game. Here's where I'm going to state how it takes away from the game. And this is exactly what Sasan said. All these people wanting an easy mode, if they were to get an easy mode, and you can apply this to all the Dark Souls games, to Bloodborne, and to Sekiro, they would run through these games, and guess what they would say at the very end? This game has a terrible story and narrative. It wasn't that great. It didn't captivate.
The boss fights weren't that creative.
Yeah. That's why they don't focus on that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I think Sekiro has an interesting story.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's interesting. I think Bloodborne had an interesting story and some crazy things that were going on. Same thing with the Souls series. But that is not the focus. The focus is combat, boss fights, and defeating the enemies when you feel like you're not good enough. Finding a way, finding something inside of you. It does take patience to figure out their patterns, to figure out what they're doing. Sometimes it takes a little bit of luck, but it takes patience and perseverance. That's what the games are about. If you create an easy mode, you are eliminating what the games are about. And then you're making it about a story-driven game that doesn't have that great of a story that they'll all bash after they beat it on easy mode.
Yeah.
Well, the game wasn't that hard, and I didn't find the story to be that captivating.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not what it's about.
I mean, to
You're
me,
missing the point.
I would equate it to something that one of my wife's favorite things to do is these obstacle races. There's all sorts of different ones, the Tough Mudders and all these kinds of things, and the really, really tough ones that can be sometimes even a half marathon or a full marathon, and the obstacles are insanely tough.
Mm-hmm.
There's always the option to skip by those. There is. Like all those races have that where you can get to one. You don't even have to try it if you don't want. You can just run around it. So then what it just becomes is kind of a cross-country half marathon or something like that. And they still get the same badge and T-shirt that I ran this Tough Mudder. And that always bugs me. Now, it doesn't really bother my wife, but it bothers me because I see the work she puts into it. She does every single obstacle, and she does awesome. And these other people not only claim to finish it, but they finish it faster than her. And I'm like, this is just stupid because they didn't actually do the work. They just kind of ran a race, which is, again, I'm not saying it's nothing to be proud of. Hey, I ran a half marathon, but it's not the same thing as finishing something like the Spartan race or whatever else. So I feel the same way about that as I do about a game like this, where I feel like there should be a barrier for entry because this is a special type of challenge. There's not many games like this. Mm-hmm. I'm 100% in agreement with you. I don't think there should be an easy mode. Actually, I think it'd be hilarious if From Software they updated the game, had it set on easy, and if you select it, the game just uninstalls from your system.
That would be hilarious.
They're like, no. And then you're banned from the game forever. You're never allowed.
And what's crazy is these people that are complaining about easy mode, they've not played the game. You don't even realize there were people that were playing Sekiro saying it was too easy.
Yeah.
And so there is actually a secret in the game to make the game harder.
Yeah.
And here I am saying, okay, while I've only struggled really bad with one boss, I still found all of them that I fought and beat to be kind of a headache. None of them were like, oh, this is so easy.
They take thought. But to think about that, you're saying that, hey, a handful of tries. I mean, think about the bosses in Dark Souls and Bloodborne that took you way more tries than that, right? Mm-hmm. At least your first time through, I would imagine. Some of them did.
Yeah.
And so then think about those players who flew through stuff like Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. Of course, they're flying through a game like this. But that, to me, just makes me admire, like, hey, that's a special skill that some people have. They're just really good at this type of game. They really get the From Software combat mechanics. They get it, and they're really good at it. And I admire that. And I have no interest in claiming that I beat a game just because they added an easy mode for me. Like if I don't finish the game Sekiro, I know that's totally on me because I didn't commit the time and effort and energy to do it. I'm not for 1 second going to blame From Software. That's 100% on me if I decide not to complete this game. So I'm with you totally. I don't think they should add an easy mode. If anything, they should prank those weaklings with something. There's so many games out there that are easy to play that take zero effort. Go play a Telltale game. It doesn't take any effort. You can experience the whole thing start to finish.
It's so dumb. Like I've seen so many people make dumb, ignorant comments, and they act like anybody who goes against their opinion is just being a try hard, like get good. They think we're ignorant, but it's not. We're protecting what the games are about, and this is coming from somebody who bought Dark Souls on day one and couldn't hatch it. Like I was just like, nope, not doing this crap. This is stupid. I remember I ran into that first boss. Remember, Dark Souls explains nothing to you, and this was all brand new to me. And I had played a little bit of what was Demon Souls, but I didn't play it enough to understand what these games were about. And so I'm playing Dark Souls, and the first time I run into that first boss and he like one-shots me, I'm like, this is stupid. Like I got angry. I was like, this is dumb. Who starts a game off like this?
Yeah.
Like you have me fight like 3 guys, you give me a broken sword, and then you want me to fight Fatty who can one-shot me? Like I was angry. And then once you learn, oh, well, you can actually run past him, and then you can get a sword, and then you can jump from above him. Like there's all these little secrets that you don't know about if you just play the game without thinking and you quit. But if you put in the work, you'll educate yourself. And even if you got to cheat sometimes like I do and go watch a fighting cowboy guy who gets it. He's one of those. He's just one of them. He gets it. Like that's why they give him free copies and he streams it. It's not just because he's a streamer. It's because he's ridiculously good and he figures everything out and he explains it so well.
And that reminds me of what I was going to say is for those of you who are listening who are like, yeah, but I still want to experience it. I hear you. Go on YouTube and watch a full playthrough, right?
Yeah.
Go or watch the highlights or something like that. They exist. They're out there. So go do it that way. I would really be disappointed if FromSoft caves on this. I don't think they will.
I don't think they
will.
But
I would be disappointed if they back down from what makes their game special.
And here's the thing that I was thinking about, like with these games, they're so hard that it's almost like sports. And what I mean by that is sometimes I'll go watch like Fighting Cowboy because I'm studying his film. I'm not just listening to what he's saying. I'm actually watching him play. There's a difference between studying your opponent when you're playing them and then studying them before you play them and then going and playing them. And that's what sports is. Like Peyton Manning was considered one of the best quarterbacks ever. And the reason why everybody would say he was one of the best wasn't just because of his physical tools. It was actually more because he was always mentally prepared. Why? Because he studied the defense he was going to a T, like nonstop. He knew everything inside and out. And he didn't do it by playing games against them first. He would study the film first, then play the game. So that's kind of what I do. Sometimes if I'm like, okay, I know this guy is going to be difficult, so I'm going to study him. And then I study him, and then I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then I give it a shot, and I fail, and I'm like, okay, then what did I not catch? And then I'll watch it again, like, oh, I missed the timing there. I didn't notice that I needed to dodge right every time, not dodge left or right, whatever I feel. Like you just got to consistently dodge right.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff that I do. Like I study it, so it does wear on me mentally. And if you don't get it, I can totally get why you would quit. And that's why I said I'm doing good as far as I'm concerned, but I'm still tired. Like there isn't that easy out like Dark Souls and Bloodborne where it's like, okay, I'm tired. Like, hey, I don't even want to try.
Bring in a random to help you. Right.
So that's why I said if I beat this game, I think it would be something that I just keep coming back to.
Yeah.
And that it becomes like this game I just play on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
I still think it's one of the best games to come out this year. I think at the end of the year, I'm still going to talk about it being game of the year, whether I beat it or not. But I think it's a quality game. I don't think they should mess with it. I think people should respect what they've created. And if you don't understand, and if you're just that simplistic with, there's never been a bad game with an easy mode, it's never ruined anybody's experience, you really don't know what you're talking about with these games. Plus, and I understand that the onus is on the player, the temptation of, if you fail at a boss 5 to 10 times, knowing you can click it down to an easy mode, not okay. Like that's just stupid. Like some people are gonna give in, and you shouldn't have that option. Not in these games built around. That are built around. This being difficult. And
some games it makes sense. Some games it makes sense. I mean, my son's been playing through Mario plus Rabbids, and he's only 8. And so I've talked about this when it came out a couple years back, and I remember saying like, "Hey, this is surprisingly difficult at times. I get the difficulty ramps up, and if you die once or twice, it'll say, "Would you like to switch to easy mode?" And all I have to do is hold the Y button as the level reloads, and it'll double your attack power and your health, or something like that. And so I think games like that should have easy modes because kids are going to be playing them. I think games like this should certainly not, and it's not because of the age of who's playing them, but the people who are playing it know I'm playing a From Software game, which means it's going to be tough, and I have to be committed to it. Honestly, even talking about it more here today kind of makes me go, you know what? I think I'm going to watch a video on Madame Butterfly and the Bull and go give them another shot because they are fun, and it's so satisfying when that victory moment happens. I mean, it's just really, really satisfying, and putting in an easy mode would just sap the satisfaction right out of that. So I hope they do not do that.
Yeah, and I don't think they will, and I think people will get over it. I think it's just people that are being ignorant and they think everything should be inclusive. That's not how life works, man.
No.
We gotta get out of that mindset. I'm not saying that I'm against bringing people in from all over, like inclusivity, whatever the word is, inclusivity or whatever is okay for most things, but it doesn't need to be for everything. We got to stop
Agreed.
with the black and white.
Agreed.
Like there are some things that you don't have to have that built
Right.
in. There are
Right.
some things that are better for just women, and there are some things that are better for just men.
How dare you?
I know, and crazy. It's okay for black people to have things for black people and things for white people. And like, it's okay. And we don't live in that society anymore. Now we're like, no, everybody must be brought in. Everybody must be part of this. No, they don't need to be a part of it. There are some things you just don't need to be a part of.
Everyone needs to have an equal part of everything always. It's more that the door is open for anyone who wants to give this a whirl. Like, we're not closing the door on anybody. Anyone who wants to dive into a From Software game, go for it. Just know, just buckle up.
Just
get
know
ready.
what you're getting into.
Just get ready. It's not going to tailor to you. You need to adjust to it. And so yeah, I think that, and that's why I like having stuff like Division 2 on the side where it's the satisfying. I'm at the level 25 now. This very satisfying loop of looting, tons and tons of loot, upgrading my character, getting new outfits to put on because some of the apparel they give you is pretty cool. Running these missions, I've been teaming up with randoms. It's been a lot of fun. That's totally different than my Sekiro experience. I don't have to when Sekiro fires up. Honestly, this is kind of like you have the controller in your hand and you kind of look at the screen and you go, here we go. Like when it's a Sekiro or Bloodborne game, you take a deep breath and here we go. When it's something like Division 2, you don't do that. You just load it up and run around and start playing. So I'm glad to have that kind of easy, laid back game. I mean, the last 2 weeks have been very busy for me, personally and at work too. So it's been nice to have something like Division 2 to jump in and play for a little bit, jump back out. But now that we've been talking about it, now you've got me wanting to try some more Sekiro again. So I don't think I've given up on it. I really do. I never thought I had. I think I just slowed down on it a bit since our last conversation.
Yeah.
I also tried a little bit of this incredibly artistic but not very fun game called Gris or however you pronounce Gris. GRIS. It's on the PC and Switch. It's got amazing art style. I don't care who you are, if you like or hate indies, whatever. The art is amazing, and the way they bring the colors back in with the paint, it's really, really well done. They had some legit artists create this game. It's not that fun to play. There's tons and tons of long periods of time where you're just running one direction and then jumping every once in a while. And I think it's meant to be very calming, and they're trying to paint this picture for you. And I do not recommend this game for everybody, but artistically, really impressive. Really, really impressive. I think it's also because I'm used to stuff like when you played a game like Ori, there was always something new around the corner. Ori kept you engaged all the time, something new to discover, some new enemies. You always had to be careful. And while this game, Gris, has very orchestral, beautiful music, kind of like Ori, some really impressive visuals, when it comes to the actual gameplay, there's a very few upgrades they give you along the way for different moves. Not all that great. So I don't necessarily recommend it for everyone, but if art is your thing, then I do recommend it. I do think artistically it's pretty cool. Other than that, just been a lot of Division 2. That's really all I've been playing the last couple weeks. And I've been watching some shows here and there. Just finished Umbrella Academy a couple weeks ago. Love that show. And getting ready to go watch Avengers Endgame. I got to go back through some of the Avengers movie to get ready for that because I got my tickets. I'm pumped.
Oh,
I'm ready
nice.
for that.
I'm not pumped. I didn't like the two Avengers movies before that. I mean, I didn't hate them, but I just didn't find them to be that good.
I liked Age of Ultron. I think people gave it a lot of hate. I liked it. I thought Infinity War, my initial reaction was negative. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it was like, they're going to leave us hanging for a year. This is such a cheap trick. Like, this is so dumb.
Mhm.
And what annoyed me the most was that I know those people aren't dead for good. So this is really annoying that they did this and tried to make it so dramatic. But now that Endgame's coming out and the trailers have come out, I am getting a little excited about it to see how, because it's a 3-hour movie. So there's going to be a lot that happens in this movie. But the one thing movie-wise I did want to touch on that I'm very excited about, the new Joker trailer came out with Joaquin Phoenix, and it looks dark and messed up and amazing. So I don't know if DC movies will ever get their act together. I mean, Justice League was awful. Batman vs. Superman was hilariously bad. Suicide Squad, not good. Wonder Woman was good, but the rest of them have been bad. So I hear that Shazam is good fun. I want to see Shazam. But dude, the new ad for Joker, it looks like they have nailed this incredibly dark 70s, really set like pathetic Joker vibe that then turns him into this maniac. I can't wait. I think it looks amazing. So I'm pumped for that one.
Shazam's really good. I thought the action was okay, but it's really funny.
Yeah.
Like they got the perfect actor, not just for Zachary Levi, but also the kind of his sidekick kid partner.
Yeah.
So the kid that plays Zachary's character as a kid is good, but also his brother in the movie is really good too. Like he's very funny. So the movie's very, very funny. I thought the action was okay. I thought the story was okay. I just enjoyed like watching.
It's just fun. I keep hearing it's fun.
Yeah, it's just fun.
I do love Zachary Levi. I've been a fan of his since Chuck. I like him a lot.
Yeah, so if you like him, then you'll like the movie. Yeah. That being said, the only thing I would add on to the show before we wrap it up is Ori and the Blind Forest is actually a great example of a game that I could not cut it on normal mode. And they added easy. And I didn't complain because I ended up getting to beat that game. But I also never complained that they should make an easy mode for Ori and the Blind Forest. I actually accepted I cannot beat this game. I gave up. I was like, I'm pissed. This game is pissing me off. And I put about 8 or 9 hours. I did it all in one day. That's probably why I was so pissed. I was off work and I just played it nonstop. And I got to a part where I couldn't beat it. And I was getting that anxiety that I get in like Dark Souls and all that. I was frustrated. But they did add easy mode. And I got to experience the story. And I got to experience the game. And it was fun. But Ori isn't built off boss fights. Ori,
no, it's not.
The part that I was struggling with,
it's platforming.
It was platforming.
Right.
And so they give you a little,
really fast-paced platforming sometimes.
So they give you a little bit more grace while you're going through those platforming scenarios, and they give you a little bit where you can take a little more hits and stuff like that. Could they do that in Sekiro? Yeah.
I hope they don't.
Like we talked about, and I'm not going to beat the dead horse anymore. I think if they do that, you then get stuck with something that Ori didn't do, and that's Ori didn't have like a lame story or anything like that. It had a really good story with great art design, amazing music, and it's something that you could put an easy mode in and be like, it doesn't take away from the game because it's got more to it. I think if you make those games easy, you do take away from it.
You know, you could make an argument that Ori's a good example of how adding an easy mode was fine. And I get that. I get that if you're on the side of, hey, add easy modes, I can see how you'd use that as an example. But my only counter to that would be that Ori isn't necessarily built, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the developers would speak to this otherwise. I don't think Ori was built on the premise of we want this to be so brutally difficult that overcoming each of these challenges has the satisfaction that no other game has. You know, it's not meant to be Trials HD. That's another one that's brutally difficult once you get to hard and extreme levels. This Ori, I didn't think was meant to be that, but it turns out it is very difficult. And it also appeals to a much wider audience. I mean, kids up to adults, they'll all love the game Ori. It's very moving and colorful and cartoony and gorgeous and fun to play, but it gets so tough that there is a wall there for, I would say, a significant portion of that audience. Call me crazy, but I feel like adding an easy mode to that one, I could see more sense. Yeah, it makes a little more sense. So I see why it's an example that some folks might use, but again, it's just not the same as a FromSoft game. I will say this though, having just played a recent Souls-like that did not really, you didn't really benefit from grinding much, was Ashen. And I did end up beating that game, but it had very much to do with just get really good, learn that boss, and get really good at that boss. They had that in between though, because you could also have a friend play with you or a random unnamed co-op person with you. So they gave you that little bit of an easier edge there in some cases, but you couldn't really grind your way to being uber powerful. I mean, you could. There's some things to upgrade, but when it comes down to it, you just have to get better. You just have to learn the enemies and get better and have patience. So I get it. If those of you listening, that's not your thing. Patience isn't your thing. I get it. Most of us that talk on this show, we have families and jobs, and many of us are dads and that kind of thing, or moms. We got some later female listeners too. But that being said, if patience is your thing and you like the payoff on the other side of it, awesome. Go play these games. If not, there's a lot of other games to choose from. Don't ruin FromSoft. That's all I would say. Don't ruin.
So I want to end the show on Borderlands Game of the Year edition. Yeah. So they made the announcement at PAX, whatever, East. I don't follow that crap anymore. But anyway, so they made the announcement that they were releasing Borderlands Game of the Year. The edition is free on PC if you already had Borderlands, and then it's $30 on PS4 and Xbox One X, or $30 on PC if you don't have. Well, really, you could get it for $7.50 through Amazon. But point is they're bringing the original Borderlands to modern consoles with 4K, native 4K, 60 frames per second, and then they made some little changes to just make the experience a little bit better compared to the original.
It's a little closer to Borderlands 2 from what I remember, but
yeah. So here's my thoughts on it. I'm a level 21, I think now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm up to level 11, so I'm not that far into it, but yeah.
A level 21, and I'm in New Haven. The game is so much fun. Keep in mind, I do love Borderlands 2 more, but I actually have played Borderlands probably more than I played Borderlands 2, just because when it came out, I was unemployed, and I was co-oping that game with like my cousin and a couple other friends. Like we always had the four of us on there.
You've got nostalgia attached to it a little bit.
Yeah, so I've probably beat it 2 or 3 times. I don't remember because we just kept playing. And now this is the first time I'm playing it really solo. I probably played it one time before solo, but this is the first time I remember I'm actually playing solo the whole way through. But here's my experience so far with it. I think it's amazing. Like, I think it runs very smooth. There are some choppiness in some areas where, like, I get screen tears and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I think it is the game. I do have one bug where I completed the story mission, like one of the very first ones where you buy like a shield and you turn it into Zed or whatever. And I completed it and I did it and went away. And then I joined a co-op mission because just today I was like, well, I want to see if I can co-op with like random, see how that goes. And I joined somebody that had to do that mission, and it's now stuck in my game. So I can't get rid of it. It's just there saying to turn it in. And I'm like, but Zed won't let me turn it in. It hasn't stopped me from progressing. I hope it doesn't, but as far as I can tell,
it's just annoying to have this uncompleted,
I hate it,
incomplete mission sitting there. Yeah, I played it a little bit too. When you sent me that text and said, "Hey, I went ahead and bought this," I was like, "Sweet!" I haven't played the first Borderlands in a long time, and I'd forgotten that 2 and then Tales from the Borderlands, they all kind of upped the ante on more flamboyant characters and humor, but 1 still had its fair share of some pretty funny and crazy stuff going on. I really enjoy it. I think it still holds up pretty well. I mean, I think the shooting in 2 was a little bit better. Of course, they better improve every time. And I am looking forward to 3, which is, by the way, the other big announcement when they said, here comes Game of the Year edition for 1, is 3 is coming, I believe this September is the release date. So, so that's pretty exciting. But all that to say, this game is now, I want to say 10 years old, 11 years old. Yeah. And the loot system, the shooting, the mission structure, the world they've created, the characters you talk to, I think it all holds up really well. And it's really fun to play. So I highly recommend it if especially if you've never played it before, this is the version to get and to play.
Yeah,
It looks
sure.
pretty good. A lot of the textures are flattened out because remember, this isn't a complete from the ground up remake. So some of it does look a little bit older, but for the most part, runs smoothly, and I really like it. I'm enjoying it. Again, don't know if I'll play it all the way to the end, but it's just been fun to jump back in. And I as far as, again, I said looter shooters earlier with Division 2, Borderlands is exactly that. If you like loot, if you like picking up new weapons and trying out new combos of stuff, dude, they've got loot for you if that's what you want.
Well, and I think the reason why I've been enjoying this even more, not only with the upgrades and stuff, but I have 75 keys. So I can just sit there and go and unlock new weapons over and over. I've already used like 30 of them.
Wait, how'd you get 75 keys?
Probably from all my Borderlands games. It's
That's
just come,
crazy.
my account had like 75 keys.
That's awesome.
And I think in Borderlands 2, when I was playing with Jesse, if I'm not getting this confused, I had like over like 130 or 140 while I was playing Borderlands 2. So, and that's the other announcement is Borderlands 2 and Borderlands pre-sequel now are native 4K 60 frames per second on the Xbox One X, and I'm sure it's the same on the PS4 Pro. So I am actually at the end of Borderlands 2 with Jesse, so I want to finish that. I definitely want to finish Borderlands Game of the Year Edition. I might even jump into the DLC, but I'm definitely planning on playing the campaign all the way through. I want to be able to finish it this year before Borderlands 3 comes out. Yeah, but it was nice. Like I mean, I enjoyed my time with Borderlands 2. I would say Borderlands, I'm talking about my recent playthrough with Jesse, was a little frustrating because Jesse was always higher level than me. So every time I would join him, I was just getting wiped. So I was getting frustrated. I was like, this isn't fun. Whereas I'm going through this Game of the Year by myself. It's going at my pace, and I'm able to pick my missions at my level and blah, blah, blah. Plus, having 75 keys, like I said, you unlock weapons that they're not higher level than you because you can't use anything that's higher level than you, but they're at a level that usually at your level, and they're usually really good guns. So while you're playing it will normally give you basic bull crap, when you use those keys, they give you like stuff in your level, but they're like higher tier guns. Gotcha. You can just tell. And they're worth more. So once you get like crap you don't like, you just sell it. Mm-hmm. Like I have already like $150,000. And I'm like 10 hours into this game. I didn't get over $100,000 until I was like at the very end of the game. So I'm barely dying. I'm selling a ton of weapons. I'm getting a ton of weapons. It's just been a nice, like we were talking about, laid back experience. I've only had one time where I was getting frustrated. Other than that, it's been very laid back and fun. So it's been a nice change from Sekiro, which is, like I said, I haven't had a terrible experience.
You know what? It's almost like going to work with Sekiro because, again, yes, you're playing a video game, but think about at your job, at least for most of you. Sorry, some of you are like, nope, hate everything about my job. But for example, at my job, I feel like I get these satisfying moments where I've completed a thing and I did really good work here, and that's a good feeling. But getting up every morning and going into work isn't always the best feeling. You know, those tough meetings you have to go through aren't always the best feeling. But when you get to that point where you finally defeat or complete that thing, you feel great. Sekiro's not unlike that, where it's like it's a little bit like work. You have to really put in the work, put in the effort. And so that's why I'm with you. Stuff like Borderlands, I put Division 2 in that same category of just fun to pick up and play. You don't have to worry about, I mean, the world they've put you in is interesting and colorful, and yeah, let's just go shoot a bunch of bad guys. And so yeah, I'm enjoying those as well. I will say this, for Borderlands 3, they are planning on launching the game with 57 times the number of guns that Borderlands 2 had. They're saying over 1 billion guns. And in the trailer, they of course make a joke of that, where it just starts raining guns out of the sky. And so if you're big into looting and trying all different crazy gun setups, they're going to have plenty for you. So that's pretty nice.
I'm going to go all in on Borderlands 3. That's going to be
excited.
One game that I'm super excited for, and I'll buy probably the $100 version for.
And September, I'm thinking, could be a really good time for this. We don't know of much else, but I don't think there's going to be a major Tomb Raider or Spider-Man type release in September. We don't know for sure, but I have a feeling it might have that time to itself. So it should be a good time to release it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for this week. Thanks, Derek, for taking time to talk. I know it's getting late for you, so
Yeah.
go ahead and get to bed. Thank you so much for talking. Guys, we'll talk to you next week. See ya.
Who is your daddy? I am the father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?